On a cool, early spring morning in Crestview Estates, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until a single act of defiance turned an ordinary day into a whirlwind of chaos and unexpected consequences. In a meticulously maintained neighborhood, where every homeowner took pride in their pristine lawns and sparkling pools, HOA Karen Thompson had long been notorious for her strict adherence to rules and her unyielding determination to enforce them. That morning, as the sun began to climb over the horizon and birds chirped softly in the trees, Karen noticed something that set her blood boiling. A pool that wasn't hers being used without permission. Unbeknownst to many behind the tall hedges and manicured lawns of Crestview Estates, the pool belonged to Marcus Delgado, a hard-working, down-to-earth homeowner who had invested his heart and sweat into maintaining his property. Marcus's pool was not just a luxury. It was his sanctuary after long, stressful days working multiple jobs. One crisp morning, while Marcus was away on an errand, Karen decided that this blatant disregard for the community rules was an opportunity she couldn't let slide. Convinced that she was safeguarding the sanctity of Crestview standards, she picked up her phone and dialed the HOA hotline, loudly proclaiming that someone had been using a pool without permission. Little did Karen know, however, that Marcus had devised a plan of his own, a plan that would soon shake the foundations of the very rules he had always respected. In a bold move fueled by equal parts frustration and a desire for justice, Marcus had recently upgraded his pool area by adding a discreet, yet powerful electrical system to enhance security. His innovation was meant to deter unauthorized use, and as fate would have it, it would now ignite a sequence of events no one could have predicted. Within minutes of Karen's furious complaint echoing through the community channels, curious neighbors gathered along the pool fence, smartphones at the ready. The air was heavy with anticipation as residents whispered about what might come next. Meanwhile, Marcus, arriving back home unaware of the brewing storm, was about to trigger his carefully orchestrated countermeasure. With a press of a hidden switch on his tablet, he activated the electrical system, a state-of-the-art setup designed to gently but unmistakably remind intruders that the pool was private property. In that moment, the hum of electricity filled the air, and what followed was a shocking display of light and sound that left everyone in stunned silence. Karen, who had been convinced that her call would bring swift retribution, now watched in disbelief as the scene unfolded before her eyes. The unexpected burst of controlled chaos sent ripples through the neighborhood, and every eye was fixed on the spectacle. A clear message that sometimes the rules one takes for granted can come back to surprise even the most self-assured enforcers. This dramatic twist would soon force every resident of Crestview Estates to confront the true cost of prejudice and the unexpected ways in which justice can be delivered. Crestview Estates was the envy of many, a master-planned neighborhood where every detail was meticulously curated to reflect an ideal of suburban perfection. Wide, tree-lined streets led past uniform homes with manicured lawns, and each property boasted a small but luxurious pool that shimmered under the California sun. The community was governed by a strict HOA, and its residents prided themselves on maintaining an image of order and propriety. In this highly regulated environment, even the smallest deviation from the norm could set off a cascade of disapproval. Karen Thompson, known by many as HOA Karen, was one of those residents who took her role as enforcer very seriously. In her early 50s, Karen was a woman who prided herself on her immaculate appearance, a wardrobe of designer suits, perfectly coiffed hair, and a collection of accessories that spoke of a refined taste. To her, the rules were not suggestions, but mandates, and she felt an almost sacred duty to ensure that every resident adhered to the community's standards. Over the years, Karen had made a name for herself by frequently reporting even minor infractions to the HOA board. Her calls were often laced with a self-righteous tone, and she believed wholeheartedly that she was protecting the community's values. In stark contrast, Marcus Delgado, the owner of the pool in question, was a man of humble origins whose life story was one of quiet resilience. In his late 30s, Marcus had worked tirelessly to build a stable, secure home for himself and his family. He was known for his genuine smile, his strong work ethic, and his commitment to maintaining his property with the utmost care. His pool was not just a status symbol. It was his oasis, a place where he could relax after long, grueling days. Recently, driven by both practical necessity and a spark of ingenuity, Marcus had invested in upgrading his pool area with an innovative electrical system. This system was designed to secure his property, a subtle yet powerful deterrent against unauthorized use, and a testament to his belief that security and privacy were paramount. The contrasting worlds of Karen and Marcus could not have been more different. While Karen's life was steeped in a rigid sense of order and the desire to impose her narrow views on her neighbors, Marcus's life was defined by hard work, innovation, and the simple pursuit of a safe, private haven for his family. Crestview Estates, with its uniform beauty and strict rules, provided the perfect backdrop for this clash. Every corner of the neighborhood, every perfectly trimmed hedge, every sparkling pool, spoke of the high standards expected of its residents. And yet, beneath the surface, old prejudices and personal vendettas occasionally bubbled to the surface, threatening to disrupt the delicate balance of community life. On the day in question, as Karen observed from her carefully manicured front yard, she fixed her gaze on Marcus's pool. To her, his relaxed enjoyment of his private space was more than just a harmless act. It was a challenge to the order she so revered. Her heart pounded with indignation as she imagined the chaos of disorder creeping into her pristine neighborhood. Determined to set things right, she had not hesitated to dial the HOA hotline, convinced that she was acting in the community's best interest. What Karen did not know was that Marcus had anticipated such disruptions. His recent upgrade to the pool security system was part of a broader plan to protect his home without resorting to confrontation. With his finger poised over a hidden switch, Marcus was prepared for any eventuality, even if it meant turning the simple act of closing his pool gate into a spectacle that would force everyone to question the real meaning of privacy and respect. As neighbors began to murmur and smartphones emerged to capture every moment, the stage was set for a dramatic showdown. The pristine exterior of Crestview Estates would soon be tested by a conflict that pitted personal prejudice against the unyielding force of innovation and responsibility. A confrontation that promised to reveal deep truths about the community and the people who called it home. Karen's phone call had set off a chain reaction that quickly spread throughout Crestview Estates. Within minutes of her 911 call, the normally serene neighborhood was abuzz with whispers and furtive glances. Neighbors, long accustomed to Karen's self-appointed role as the enforcer of community norms, were now split. Some felt her vigilance was justified, while others were beginning to see it as an overreach driven by personal bias. On the busier side of the street, Officer David Ramirez arrived in his marked cruiser. As he made his way toward Marcus's property, his demeanor was professional and calm, a sharp contrast to the escalating tension. "Ma'am, can you tell me what's going on?" Officer Ramirez asked politely as he approached Karen, who stood rigidly in her front yard. With a tone that dripped with indignation, she repeated her complaint. "There's a black man using his pool without permission. He's invading our neighborhood standards, and he must be stopped." Meanwhile, Marcus was in his backyard, oblivious to the storm about to break. He had just finished a refreshing swim and was preparing to secure his pool. As he pressed the button on his newly installed control panel, the pool gate began its slow, smooth descent, a routine act of maintenance that he had performed countless times before. The automation was designed to be seamless, efficient, and secure, a testament to his commitment to protecting his property. Officer Ramirez, after speaking with Karen, walked over to Marcus's property. "Sir, I need to confirm what happened here," he said. Marcus looked up, his eyes calm and friendly. "I was simply closing my pool gate to secure my home," he explained in a measured tone. Ramirez then pulled out his tablet to review the digital logs from a security camera installed by a vigilant neighbor. The footage clearly showed Marcus methodically closing his pool gate with no sign of disturbance. Only the ordinary, responsible actions of a homeowner protecting his family's safety. as the evidence unfolded before him. Officer Ramirez couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between the footage and Karen's vehement 911 call. "Ma'am, there appears to be no disturbance here," he stated gently, turning to face Karen. Her confident expression wavered for a moment as the undeniable proof challenged her narrative. The digital evidence began to spread rapidly among the residents of Crestview Estates. Social media erupted with posts under hashtags like #JusticeForMarcus and #RealPoolOwner, and many neighbors started questioning Karen's motives. Why would someone call the police over a perfectly normal pool gate closure? One resident texted to a community group. Others, who had grown tired of Karen's frequent and often unfounded calls, expressed their relief that the truth was finally coming to light. Karen, however, remained stubbornly defensive. She insisted that Marcus's actions were a violation of some unwritten rule of the neighborhood. "He's showing off his status," she declared, her voice rising in frustration. But the mounting digital evidence left little room for argument. Marcus's routine was indisputable, and his responsible behavior was confirmed by both the security footage and the calm testimony of Officer Ramirez. The situation quickly escalated into a heated debate among the residents. At a community meeting later that evening, neighbors recounted previous incidents where Karen had used the 911 system to report minor infractions, all of which, upon investigation, turned out to be baseless. The accumulated evidence painted a troubling picture. Karen's actions were less about genuine concern for public safety and more about enforcing a narrow, prejudiced view of who should be allowed to enjoy the neighborhood's privileges. Digital forums buzzed with discussions on the misuse of public resources, and local news outlets began airing segments that highlighted the broader implications of the incident. This is a classic example of how personal bias can distort reality, one editorial argued, while another piece noted that responsible home security should never be weaponized as a tool of social control. The conflict was no longer just about a pool gate. It had become a symbol of the deep divisions within Crestview Estates, forcing everyone to re-examine what truly mattered in their community. By the end of the day, the community was abuzz with a sense of urgency. The digital evidence had not only exonerated Marcus, but had also ignited a firestorm of support for him and criticism for Karen's repeated misuse of the emergency system. The incident had escalated far beyond its trivial beginnings and was now setting the stage for a dramatic confrontation that would demand accountability and lead to meaningful change within the neighborhood. In the days that followed, the story of Karen's misguided 911 call spread like wildfire throughout Crestview Estates. Social media platforms buzzed with passionate posts, and hashtags such as #RealPoolOwner and #NoMore911Abuse quickly began trending among residents. Local news outlets picked up the story, featuring interviews with shocked neighbors, civil rights advocates, and even experts on public resource management. The narrative that had started with a simple complaint had now evolved into a heated debate over the proper use of emergency services and the dangerous effects of personal prejudice. At community meetings, residents from all walks of life gathered to discuss the incident. The meeting room at the Crestview Community Center was filled with a diverse crowd: longtime residents, young families, and even local officials. Emotions ran high as one speaker decried the misuse of 911. "We must not allow personal vendettas to dictate our public resources. This is not about a pool gate. It's about respect for every member of our community." The impassioned speech was met with resounding applause, and soon a chorus of voices demanded that the local authorities review and reform the current policies governing emergency calls. Within the Oak Ridge Police Department, the internal investigation into Karen's call gained momentum. Officer Aaron Lewis's detailed report, complete with time-stamped digital footage, eyewitness statements, and corroborative social media posts, formed a damning dossier. Senior officers, shocked by the clear evidence of Karen's repeated misuse of the 911 system, convened emergency meetings. "We cannot allow our system to be hijacked by personal biases," one officer stated during a heated discussion. The department's leadership recognized that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern that needed immediate attention and reform. As the investigation unfolded, local civil rights groups and community advocates seized the opportunity to shine a light on the underlying issues of prejudice that had long simmered beneath the surface of Crestview Estates. Protests were organized outside the police station, and banners with messages like "Our resources, our rights, and end bias now" were waved by determined demonstrators. Influential community leaders took to the airwaves, calling for transparency, accountability, and a thorough overhaul of how 911 calls were handled. If we allow our emergency services to be misused in this way, we set a dangerous precedent for our entire community, a prominent local activist argued during a televised forum. Digital evidence played a crucial role in the escalating tension. Videos of the incident were remixed with commentary, and countless posts praised Marcus Delgado's responsible behavior while condemning Karen's actions. The hashtag Justice for Marcus became a rallying cry for those who believe that public resources should never be exploited to settle personal scores. Every shared video clip, every tweet of support, and every comment in online forums added to the growing chorus demanding accountability for Karen's repeated misuse of the system. The mounting public pressure forced local authorities to take decisive action. At a special meeting of the City Council, officials debated new measures to safeguard the 911 system from being misused for personal vendettas. Proposals range from implementing a more rigorous review process for emergency calls to imposing strict penalties on those who repeatedly abuse the system. Our emergency services are meant to protect and serve, not to serve personal biases, one council member declared passionately, his words resonating with a crowd that had grown increasingly impatient with the status quo. Amid this rising storm, Karen Simmons began to feel the weight of public opinion. Neighbors who had once silently tolerated her behavior now voiced their outrage openly. Private conversations revealed that many residents had grown tired of her repeated calls, which were now seen as emblematic of a deeper, systemic problem in how some individuals exploited community resources for their own prejudiced ends. The digital archives of her past complaints began to circulate, painting a comprehensive picture of a pattern of behavior that could no longer be ignored. Officer Lewis and his team worked diligently to compile every piece of evidence into a comprehensive dossier that would form the cornerstone of the forthcoming disciplinary review. This dossier, laden with digital footage, witness statements, and a detailed timeline of events, became a powerful testament to the truth. Marcus had acted responsibly, and Karen's call was nothing more than an expression of deep-seated bias. The report, once released publicly, was met with widespread acclaim from community members and civil rights advocates, further bolstering the call for reform. As the days turned into a week, the combined force of community activism, digital evidence, and internal reviews pushed the entire system to a breaking point. The once trivial matter of a pool gate closure had transformed into a potent symbol of the fight against prejudice, a turning point that promised to redefine how public resources were used in Crestview Estates. The escalating tension reached a fever pitch, setting the stage for a dramatic turning point that would force accountability and usher in a new era of transparency and fairness. The decisive moment came on a brisk morning in a packed boardroom at the Crestview Community Center. The room was filled with senior city officials, representatives from the local police department, community leaders, and members of the media, all gathered to hear the final resolution of the internal investigation into Karen Simmons's 911 call. With a calm yet commanding presence, Councilwoman Andrea Martinez stepped up to the podium, her eyes reflecting the determination of a community united against prejudice. After a comprehensive review of all available evidence, including digital footage, witness testimonies, and detailed internal reports, we have reached an inescapable conclusion. Councilwoman Martinez began, her voice steady and authoritative. It is abundantly clear that the 911 call made by Mrs. Karen Simmons was not motivated by any genuine concern for public safety, but was instead an expression of deep-seated bias. This call was an abuse of our emergency services, a misuse that undermines the very trust and integrity of our community. A heavy silence fell over the room as Martinez continued. Effective immediately, Mrs. Simmons's record of discriminatory 911 calls will be subjected to a full disciplinary review. Moreover, we are implementing new protocols to safeguard our emergency services from being exploited for personal vendettas. Her words resonated deeply with everyone present, marking a definitive stance against the misuse of public resources. At that moment, a respected representative from the community, a longtime advocate for justice and equality, rose to speak. Today, we take a stand for every resident who has been marginalized by acts of prejudice, he declared, his voice firm and impassioned. This is not just about one call. It's about ensuring that every citizen is treated with the dignity they deserve. We demand accountability, and we will not tolerate any attempt to use our public services as a weapon against the vulnerable. His declaration was met with a thunderous round of applause, uniting the room in a shared commitment to change. Following this, a senior police official presented the final dossier, a meticulously compiled record that included every piece of digital evidence, internal log, and eyewitness account from the incident. The evidence was overwhelming and left no doubt. Marcus Carter had acted with the utmost responsibility, while Mrs. Simmons's call was a stark display of bias. The Internal Affairs panel unanimously supported the decision to impose strict disciplinary measures, and plans were already underway to release the full report to the public for transparency. Councilwoman Martinez concluded, "Let this be a turning point for Crestview Estates, a day when we reject prejudice in all its forms and reaffirm our commitment to fairness, accountability, and respect for every individual. Our community's future depends on our ability to hold each other to a higher standard, and today, we set that standard together." Her final words, delivered with unwavering conviction, sealed the turning point. The balance of power had shifted decisively. The misuse of emergency services driven by personal bias would no longer be tolerated, and every instance of discrimination would now be met with swift, uncompromising action. In that defining moment, as every face in the room reflected shock, determination, and hope, the community of Crestview Estates stood united. The evidence had spoken, and the collective call for justice could no longer be ignored. The turning point was clear. Prejudice would be dismantled, and accountability would reign supreme. In the weeks following the landmark resolution, Crestview Estates began a slow but palpable transformation. News of the disciplinary review against Karen Simmons spread rapidly through local media, igniting a series of community discussions about the proper use of public resources and the need for accountability in the face of personal bias. Town hall meetings, community forums, and neighborhood gatherings became spaces where residents shared their own experiences and charted a course for a fair future. Local newspapers ran editorials with headlines like "Prejudice Exposed," "A New Dawn for Crestview," and "Justice and Accountability in Our Community." Social media exploded with supportive messages, and hashtags such as #JusticeForAll and #NoToBias trended widely. The digital evidence from the incident was widely shared, serving as an undeniable testament to the truth. Marcus Carter had acted responsibly, while Karen Simmons had misused the 911 system to enforce her own prejudiced views. Within the Crestview Police Department, the internal investigation spurred comprehensive reforms. Senior officials, led by Director Samuel Green and Lieutenant Marcus Daniels, instituted new training programs focusing on cultural sensitivity, ethical conduct, and the judicious use of emergency services. Regular internal audits and a transparent disciplinary process were established, ensuring that every complaint of misuse would be addressed promptly and impartially. "Our duty is to serve all members of our community with fairness and respect," Lieutenant Daniels declared in a subsequent press conference, reinforcing the renewed commitment to accountability. Community leaders and civil rights organizations also seized the moment to push for lasting change. Public forums and workshops were organized to educate residents on the proper use of emergency services and to address the broader issues of prejudice that had surfaced. We must work together to build a community where every individual's rights are respected, one local activist proclaimed during a vibrant town hall meeting. The collective energy of the community was palpable, a united front determined to prevent future abuses and to foster an environment of inclusion. For Marcus Carter, what had begun as a routine act of securing his home had turned him into an inadvertent local hero. Neighbors who had once barely noticed his quiet diligence now celebrated his example of responsibility and integrity. His calm demeanor in the face of unjust ridicule became a rallying point for those who believed that true authority was earned through hard work and respect, not through the enforcement of outdated prejudices. Karen Simmons, confronted with the overwhelming evidence of her bias, found herself increasingly isolated. Former supporters distanced themselves, and the record of her repeated misuse of 911 calls emerged, painting a clear picture of a pattern driven by personal vendetta rather than genuine concern for public safety. Her actions, once seen as a staunch defense of community standards, were now widely regarded as a cautionary tale of how prejudice can warp one's judgment and lead to far-reaching consequences. At a final celebratory event held in the Central Park of Crestview Estates, community members, local officials, and law enforcement representatives gathered under the soft glow of the setting sun. A large banner reading, "Unity and Justice for All," was unfurled between mature oak trees, and heartfelt speeches resonated with messages of hope and renewal. Today, we celebrate not just a victory over prejudice, but a promise for a future where every call for help is treated with the respect and fairness it deserves, declared Councilwoman Denise Harper, her voice echoing with conviction. The applause that followed was a powerful affirmation of the community's commitment to change. As Crestview Estates gradually returned to its tranquil routine, the legacy of that fateful day endured as a beacon of transformative change. The incident, where a baseless 911 call driven by personal bias was exposed and dismantled, served as a stark reminder that accountability and truth can overcome even the deepest-seated prejudices. Every new day in Crestview carried the promise that public resources would be used for their true purpose, to protect and serve every resident, without discrimination. In the end, the story of that summer morning became much more than a dispute over a pool gate. It evolved into a testament to the power of community, the strength of truth, and the unyielding commitment to justice. The courage of one responsible homeowner and the unrelenting pursuit of accountability transformed Crestview Estates into a place where every individual was valued, every act of prejudice was challenged, and the light of integrity shone brighter than ever before.